Wanted to introduce myself as well as AgriWebb, and my name's Matt. So I'm on our marketing team here out of the Colorado office. And at the end of the day, what our goal is with this Level Up webinar series is ultimately to help you all run more efficient businesses, increase your profits and build your bottom lines, as well as, sustaining your land that supports your legacy for generations to come. And honestly, that's what we really like to do at AgriWebb with our livestock business management solution, is to ultimately equip you to achieve your operational goals, going beyond record keeping, and really working alongside of you all to really, achieve what you're looking to when it comes to the livestock industry and beyond. So really what started our webinar series was we launched the State of the Global Farmer Survey and Report earlier this year. And really, again, it aligned with a lot of folks who are looking to become more efficient, more profitable, and more sustainable. And so that's, again, where we've really come up with these topics for the series that started last month when it came to direct to consumer and selling into integrated supply chains, and where we will go for the next few months as we look at, sustainability and also really running more efficient businesses. And so today, our goal is how are we going to achieve greater profit potential, specifically with value-added programs and certifications. And so we pulled together a really exciting panel, really starting with our moderator, Ashley Hughes, who will introduce the rest of our speakers. But we're really excited to give you all a look at, from an auditor's perspective, all the way down to a rancher's perspective, how these programs are valuable to ultimately to the industry. So with that being said, Ashley, I'm gonna toss it over to you, and feel free to introduce yourself and also the panel as well.
Thank you so much, Matt. I'm so excited to be here tonight with this incredible group of panelists. I think you're going to have some really interesting discussion tonight. My name is Ashley Hughes. I reside in the state of Florida. I have worked in and amongst the beef and dairy industries, and especially within programs like this. And I'm here to learn a little bit as well, because we have some of the experts in this process. So very excited to see what's coming. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it to RaeMarie. If you could introduce yourself, we would love to hear where you're from and a little bit about you.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is RaeMarie Knowles, and I am based out of Kiowa, Colorado. I'm the president and managing partner of Legacy Verified, which is a really great team of people that offer verification services coast to coast. As far as me personally, I'm fourth generation rancher. I've been in verification services for 14 years, if that tells you anything, and half of my career before that was in various portions of the beef industry. I worked in a sale barn, I worked in a feedlot, I worked in a national cattle publication. So I've spent a lot of time not just growing up in cow-calf, but also within the industry as well. So just excited to be here to talk to producers who've been thinking about doing verifications, and how we plan to kind of work with AgriWebb in the future to make our processes easier and better for our customers.
Thank you so much. Moritz, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Moritz Espy, manager of 777 Bison Ranch in Southwest South Dakota, Hermosa, South Dakota. Been managing the Bison Ranch here for 10 to 17 years, dang near 20. We converted over to AgriWebb a couple years ago. We have several third-party verifications that I was very disorganized with before, and AgriWebb has streamlined that a lot and have been very open to my suggestions to make it even easier next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I can't wait to hear more about what you have to say. So, Miss Laurie Conroe, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Laurie Conroe. I work for a grass-fed beef company called SunFed Ranch. Sorry, I think I just got the poll, Matt. Thank you, Matt and Ashley, for doing this and hosting this. So we're based out of California. We harvest between 200 and 300 head a week of various programs. So I think we added it all together, and we're third party verified with 8 different programs today. A lot of that's customer driven, but AgriWebb has made this process pretty seamless because it does keep all of the records together. So it's been great working with the AgriWebb team, and the third-party verifications have been pretty, I mean, it's something we strongly encourage, because I think it's a lot of what ranchers are doing today. It's just verification that's actually happening.
That sounds great. Again, looking forward to hearing everything that you have to say and some of the programs that you're a part of. So we're going to kick this off tonight. We're really going to try to encompass as much as we can about value-added programs, the what and the why, how to get involved, everything that goes into it. And I'm really interested to hear what all of the different panelists have to say about this, and cannot wait to introduce all of their answers to the group today. So thank you to everybody who's joining from across the country, as well as Australia. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. So we're going to start this off. I'm going to pass it to RaeMarie. Can you please explain, why do process verified and value-added programs exist?
Yeah, Ashley, that's always a good question. It really boils down, whether you're talking about process verified programs, which is important to know, we call those PVPs. It's important to know those operate under the USDA AMS program. Okay, so that's a government program. And then we also have, and a lot of what Laurie participates in also is producer-driven verifications, different kind of custom labeling programs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But what it all boils down to is one idea, which is consumers wanting to know more about their food products. And one of the things we run into, and if you've been, if you go into a Safeway, or you go into a Kroger or a Publix or an H-E-B, anywhere across the country, if you've ever had a chance to talk to the meat specialists that work there, it's really interesting the questions that they get from consumers. And one of the things they'll say is, I see this grass-fed product in your meat case. How do you know it's grass-fed? Like, what steps do you take to make sure that if I'm going to pay extra for this product, that it actually is a grass-fed, grass-finished product? So that's kind of where the verification process comes in. The PVP programs really started, they mostly had to do a lot with export verification services, and that's still very common today. We've actually started utilizing a lot of that more domestically as well. But if you kind of remember, they call it the cow that ruined Christmas, but our first case of mad cow is really where the PVP process started to take off, because if you kind of remember those really bad days, our trade partners closed all of the doors to us. We were not able to export any beef out of the U.S. And one of the first ways that we were able to open those markets back up was with Japan, and that's with the Source and Age program, which is the same that we know today, but it basically offered a traceability component. They had to be under 20 months of age, and then it kind of started building from there into NHTC for Europe. We have, our domestic natural programs, but there are PVP programs for things that most producers, until I got to verification services, they hadn't even heard about. There's requirements for Korea, there's requirements for Thailand, and that's where USDA comes in, negotiates with these countries, and those are the programs that allow us to keep our export services going.
Thank you so much. So with that, and talking through some of the different types of programs, can you go into a little more detail about what some of those programs are? I know there's ones specifically for export, the NHTC, if you could explain what that means, some of the different options that are out there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking on the USDA side, we have a few programs that are probably the most common across the United States. As I mentioned, it starts with Source and Age. It's the foundation of every program. And then you can add on to that the NHTC, which is non-hormone treated cattle for export to Europe. So they demand beef that is certified hormone-free. And we actually tried to tell them, we're going to send you conventional beef. It'll be fine. And when we did that, it literally rotted on the shelves. Those consumers are very, very aware of the products that they want, and having hormone-free beef is top of their list. So that's where kind of the NHTC program came from. We do have a program that's a little active. I know that Tyson sends quite a bit of beef over there, but it's Saudi Arabia, which just have some different kinds of prohibited feeds. There's we have a program like Legacy Verified Angus. Some of the other verification companies have something similar to that. So in a PVP program, we can design a program and put it under USDA surveillance and make it a PVP program. Those are the most broadly used programs that come directly out of USDA. When you look at custom programs, like one of the best examples, we have a farmer in Georgia, and she wants to have an all-natural program, but part of the natural requirements and for a lot of those programs is they have to move to and through approved facilities, including the packer. And she really doesn't have a local packer that can process for her because she sells everything ranch direct right on her farm. So we came in with a custom program, the same requirements, the same labeling. It gives legitimacy to her program because it is a third-party audit, but she's able to use her local processing plan in order to produce those products. So under that, under the custom kinds of labeling programs, we have a lot of variety and a lot of opportunities, from sustainability to conservation. There's, breed verifications, anything that a rancher thinks that their consumers, their buyers are going to see value in and want to pay extra for.
Okay. That's great. Thank you so much for that explanation. So, Laurie, I'm going to ask you first. So what was one of the reasons, or a few of the reasons, as to why you joined these programs?
A lot of it, we've found that customers, we basically what the two guys founded SunFed Ranch, and they're 5th generation ranchers. And they, we're in California, and so probably pretty forward thinking, and people are very far removed from the ranching industry. So the third party and traceability and just validation of the product they're getting is truly coming from a ranch that truly eats grass, that's truly not getting a hormone, non-GMO is a big deal for us, that the animals are treated well. So we belong to 2 animal welfare. So we're both certified humane and we are GAP 4. So, and then that the ranch, that things are sustainable, that we're improving the land, we're improving the world, we're improving, what we're doing to the world today. So we're savory certified. So a lot of it's just validation. And I think a lot of ranchers do this. It's just validation for those that are sitting. We want beef to survive. For those that are sitting in a city that have never seen an animal, and just to give them that verification, because we all know it, things that hit the media are those anomalies that, because I think we believe working hard should show what we do, and we're not necessarily good at selling our story, as ranchers and as farmers. And so I think that that third-party verification gives people, and so it's what the consumers are looking for. So it's what we're being asked for in the market. So, so that's kind of the route we've gone. I think we're organic. All of our animals we sell under organic. We sell under GAP 4. We sell under non-GMO. We also are SAV and verified natural. So savory, certified humane. So all of those it's just that validation that what you're doing is good for the animal and good for the world and traceable. So.
Absolutely. Can you explain, just for maybe some people who might not understand, can you explain what the savory certification, certified humane, and the GAP certification, just a
Sure.
little brief of what that is?
So to me, GAP certification and certified humane are very similar. So it's in being honest, I think, so it's both animal welfare based. So it's our animals won't be transported above a realistic distance. Our pens are free of any hazards that may cause wounds or may cause anything to the animal. When we load an animal on a truck, both the infrastructure that we load it on and the truck itself are free from anything that's going to hurt the animal. We provide them plenty of feed. We provide them plenty of water. They're not having to walk very far for either one of these things. Our animals are in good shape. So both those certifications fall under that. I would say the key difference between a certified humane and a GAP 4 animal is the certified humane would like to provide a pain medication upon castration. So other than that, those certifications are pretty similar. Savory is a little more in depth, and it's more on the land, and it's your verifying. So they basically do an EOV, so it's an ecological outcome verification that they'll measure your soil coverage, your plant diversity, what your residual dry matter is, what that overall ecological health looks like. they come back the following year and they do the same thing at the exact same location. So they'll take a facility. So we have a 48,000 acre facility. They'll pick 15 to 20 plus points throughout the whole ranch, and they'll visit those yearly. They'll also provide a lot of training, and a lot of it is stuff that I would say we're very familiar with, but it's just different ways to look at things, different ways to look at grazing, giving the land the opportunity to regrow before you bring animals back. And so that is by far our hardest verification to date. So, but it's been interesting. So we are now verified savory. So we're going on 2 years out, and everybody's survived. And I would say that we run as many animals as we have in the past. So.
Thank you. Moritz, let's hear your side of the story. Why did you get involved in some of these programs?
Well, to derive more value from the animal that we raise, because we convert sunlight energy into protein because nobody buys sunlight. So we wanted to set ourselves apart, because in the bison industry, we're way different than beef. But in the bison industry, the bison have this halo with the consumer that everybody assumes that they're grass fed. And then in the marketplace that we were in, everybody was saying, oh yeah, our bison's grass fed, or our bison's this, or I bison. And it was just producer claims or salesman, distributor, third party person buying some product. And then when we wanted to start producing our own stuff, we looked to third party verification to say, okay, it's not just Moritz saying this, standing next to a table at a farmer's market. It's the AGA, it's GAP4, it's the Audubon Society, it's Savory. It just throws a little more weight into it, and we feel it sets us apart. And then, we've been able to, finally get some value out of these certifications, and that was the end goal. So pretty simple.
Excuse me. What are some of the programs that you all take part in?
We're GAP4, Audubon, Savory, AGA, and I think there's one more floating up there. there's several. So
okay. So what do you think some of the benefits are that you've seen since taking part in some of these different programs?
It's opened up the doors to some niche marketers that are actively seeking us out, wanting product. So instead of us jamming product, it's actually somebody has an idea, they want to market this is the standards they want to meet, and they have a customer base that they built, and we've been able to fill that hole. So
interesting. Laurie, what do you see as some of the benefits?
We are one of the only domestic suppliers of beef to several different large customers. And it's because of traceability and third-party verification. So it leaves us, it's hard to survive beef. There's other alternatives. It's expensive. Not just beef, but everything's expensive. It just delineates our product from another product with that feel good. Hey, what we say we're doing is really what we're doing. So
yeah, that makes sense. So RaeMarie, I think you have a couple of slides that actually illustrate some of the financial gains and the profitability that can come from this. Would you mind speaking to those?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is going to be a little bit more focused, obviously, on the PVP program, just because that's, what I'm kind of focusing on today and what we're talking about. So this is 2020 data that it comes from 2 prominent national video sales. So we combine the data, and it's a mixed average for steer and heifers, because obviously steers are going to bring a little bit more premium than the heifers. But if you look at this particular chart, we have a couple of different programs on here just to show you. I went ahead and added the natural affidavit program. This is data usually kept by Superior for their Superior Natural Affidavit program, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's basically a document that a producer signs, saying that they're doing these things to keep these cattle natural. So that particular program shows about a 41 cent per hundredweight premium. If you add on to that the PVP program for Source and Age, is a standalone program, doesn't have nearly the value that it did when we were shipping all of the 20-month and under cattle to Japan. But at $2.49 per hundredweight, it's still got a little bit of legitimacy, a little bit of value. There are some producers that participate in that as just a sole program. Moving up one, NHTC, which includes Source and Age. NHTC, now this number is going to be very interesting to me. The 2021 data is still being a little bit compiled. We try to pull it from a couple of different sources before we offer averages, but $6.13 per hundredweight premium is pretty good. I imagine in 2021, it was a little bit higher because in 2020, President Trump did increase our quota of beef that we could send overseas to Europe. And at the same time, we have a lot more domestic demand for the NHTC cattle, specifically for 44 farms and what they're doing with Walmart. So I kind of expect to see that number come up just a little bit in terms of the premiums gained for just NHTC. But the one thing that's really interesting to me, it is not a whole lot in terms of workload or record keeping over the top of the verified natural, but we jumped the slide, but $16.73 per hundredweight for the natural, that is a significant premium. So if we go to the next slide, what I did is I put these on a per head basis for a 500-pound calf. So about, a lightweight calf that you're getting ready to sell. So $2 per head on the affidavit, but then now again, once you add legitimacy and some PVP verifications to that, we're looking at $12 a head for Source and Age, up to $30 per head to participate in the NHTC program. And then again, without a whole lot more work, without a whole lot more cost, you're at $83, almost $84 per head that you're going to get if you participate in a PVP natural program like Legacy Natural. I also added on here, we work really closely with Earth Claims on the gap audit. So we try to work with Earth Claims to make it easier for our customers to participate in both the PVP programs and the gap program. So I came up with this number through Superior, that is their 2020 data for what a gap premium is worth. And Seth and Melissa at Earth Claims today both confirmed that that's about what we're still looking at in terms of premium. But because I knew Moritz and I knew that Laurie were going to talk about it, just kind of wanted to show you a little bit of what the premiums are to be gained for participating in the GAP program. So the next slide is an exercise I wanted to do, and I think this is so powerful just because a lot of people come to me and say, we're sitting here, we're telling you record keeping and these different things that you're going to have to do, and some people are really on the fence about whether or not this is worth it to them. And so this is kind of an example we went through in our sales training last week. I've talked about it with our auditors. So I don't have to read this to you. You have a playback. You can get this, we can give you this slide. But basically, if we use an example ranch of 150 head, okay, so kind of an average smaller size ranch, and we want to put them into the Legacy Natural program. Our cost to put them into that program, our audit fee for that program is $9.95. You do have to buy the program compliant tags because it is required, a required component of Legacy Natural. So you're at $285. We have an excellent relationship with Datamars. They drop ship tags directly to our customers, and we only have $10 across the board, whether you get 10,000 tags or 100 tags. It's a $10 shipping fee. So it's awesome. It's easy to calculate costs. And then the travel costs, and those vary, obviously. We try to keep it around $200. I went ahead and I increased it a little bit for 2022 because we're seeing a lot of increased costs in travel. So let's just say $300. That puts us at your cost that you pay to Legacy Verified for the Legacy Natural program is $1,590. So then let's find out how that coincides with what you potentially could get when you sell those calves. So based on that 500 weight calf, you go and sell them, let's say on a video, the premium, okay, at $83.65 per head for each animal in the Legacy Natural program. The total premium above market price for a 5-weight calf is going to be $12,547.50. So cost of the program implementation, if you subtract that, the $1,590, you're looking at a net premium earning of almost $11,000. So if you put it kind of into numbers, and I think that we as ranchers always have to look at the numbers. We need to know our cow costs. We need to know our operations costs. And we can't guarantee, I will not sit here and say, okay, ABC rancher, you have 150 heads, so you're going to get $11,000 profit. We never know. There's so many factors. Breed is a factor. Freight, the sales themselves. If you're selling on a regional sale and there aren't great buyers there's a lot of factors. But this just kind of gives you an idea of the value of just one program. This is the Legacy Natural program. And then again, what Laurie and Moritz participate in, the same kind of thing. They're getting a value-added premium for participating in all those various programs because it's worth more to the consumer. So it works back down towards the rancher.
So segueing from this into thinking about what producers really need to think about and how they need to get involved, RaeMarie, what do producers really need to think about whenever they're exploring different programs? How do they know which program is the right program for them?
So that's always an excellent question also. And we try to have very candid conversations with anybody who calls us that wants to participate in programs. And one of the most important things that they have to do is they have to know what the goals of their operation are. I use this for an example, and this is literally a true story. When I was going to school in Fort Collins, I worked at the local sale barn when I got done with my livestock judging career. And there was this one rancher every year who came out of the hills west of Fort Collins, and he would go gather everything he possibly could that day. You could have 3-year-old bulls, you could have 2-week-old calves with or without a mama. Whatever he could put onto the trucks is what he brought to town. And so an operation like that, not that there's necessarily anything wrong with it if that's how you work your operation, it probably doesn't work for any kind of these programs. So understanding having some kind of organizational structure, one of the very basic things for the programs is kind of just basically a first and last calf born and knowing a head count and being able to put those into different groups. And then we work on, the records keeping from there. We help to streamline that, but it really helps with understanding exactly what you're willing to do. And to be really fair, and Laurie and Moritz can speak to this a little bit more based on their experiences with various other programs that they've worked on. On my side, on the PVP side, the record keeping is not particularly cumbersome. Sometimes it can be a little overwhelming to think about. It's really not. We're not asking you to do a whole lot more than probably what you already do just in basic operations management, like let's list your antibiotics, let's list the feed that you're using. You might have to send a couple extra documents when you ship. But the records keeping is not very cumbersome, but you have to be very open to the idea that you are now participating in a traceability program, that you have a little bit more kind of accountability, and with that comes a lot of legitimacy to your operation and your program.
That's great. So Moritz, how did you decide what programs you were going to participate in?
It was pretty easy. You called them up and they emailed you the requirements and you read through the requirements. And if those requirements fit your practices that you're doing already, it was a pretty easy fit. There was some things that were, you would roll your eyes and shake your head at on some of those fringe ones, but for the main need of organization certifications, we're already doing this. I mean, we're protecting, we're wildlife friendly. We're taking care of our ranches. We're not gouging the eyes out of our animals to get them on a truck. We're not doing crazy things, and it's actually pretty easy to meet the standards. You just have to let somebody come in on the ranch and take a look around and say, oh, they're not doing that. Well, check the box and you're done. I know it's scary and the record keeping can seem cumbersome, but it's all in what you're used to doing. It's just a few minutes, or when you're working your annual deal, somebody's just carrying a clipboard. It's not that hard. So yeah, don't change yourself to fit the box, because there's a box that will fit you already, no matter what you're doing, I think, with minor changes.
So you mentioned you had marketers reaching out to you for different certifications. So when you were deciding the programs that you wanted, had someone reached out to you and said, we're interested in certain certain certifications, or was this something you worked with the auditing company themselves?
No, it was once you're certified, the certifier has your name and a list, and then somebody's looking for a specific product, and then they reached out to us through that.
Okay.
And
Laurie, excuse me.
And then, once you get it, you're kind of proud of it. So then you take it everywhere you go and tout it, and then you pick up a few more along the way.
As you should. Laurie, what did your exploration process? How did you decide what programs you wanted to participate in?
I mean, for us, we are, and it's fun and wild, but we are an ever-growing, rapid-paced. I mean, their goal is, they want to grow a grass-fed business. So we'll produce 20, 30% of what, internally, but we're looking externally as well. So in my world, it's the predominant traceability is a big deal, which is where RaeMarie comes in. So that verification that, hey, these animals, because as you grow, that these animals came from XYZ, we can lot track back and know exactly what ranch it came from and feel comfortable about it. So the traceability is a big component. We are all never ever so antibiotic free. We are all natural, which comes into the NHTC and verified natural and source and age verified. So that kind of encompasses everything we do. A lot of the push recently has been to add an animal welfare component, which for us, it's almost neutral. It's your choice. And then a non-GMO component. And that's just another verification on top of NHTC that the diet encompasses products that aren't GMO. So I think for us, it's mostly been a lot of things we've been doing anyway, but it may be customer specific. So, but I'll tell you what, right now we're paying premiums is cattle purchasers, and I'm one of those. We're harvesting 400 head a week, and the demand just continues to increase for animals that people can feel comfortable and get behind, that animal has been verified to be happening what's really happening. And kind of what Moritz said, it's like, hey, these fit what we do today. Let's just verify it. And gosh dang, I'll promise you, there's money behind that, because there's a lot of demand for beef with no hormones. There's a lot of demand for that traceability to that ranch.
So whenever you were looking into all of these different programs, how did you decide what company you wanted to, or companies that you wanted to work with?
So like, as far as the verification process?
Yes.
So yeah, it's been, RaeMarie can answer this probably better than I can. So we started with IMI. IMI is where food comes from. And they're a pretty big company. I know there's another one that I think one of our owners is actually related to, but I think at the time IMI actually covered more than anybody else. So, and they're a large company. So we use them for quite a bit. I admit we use, and I don't know, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but we use California. So we use CCOF, which is certified, gosh dang, I don't even know if I know what it stands, but it's the organic USDA compliance verification service for California. And they're infamous for being, it's an intense audit, but we've been with them long enough at this point that, and thanks AgriWebb a little bit too, that it's a good thermometer to know that what we're doing is what we say we're doing, and we are growing. So we've stuck with it. Earth Claims, I think, is one of the only gap for auditors. I think Certified Humane does their own. We work with them. They do their own verification. So we work directly with Certified Humane. So as far as, I think it's that local person you have a relationship with. I know IMI is present at Superior. They're present at Western Livestock. They run a lot of that, but I know Angus Ling does one. I know it's just, I think it's whatever is, especially for the ones like that RaeMarie has covered. I think it's your local chapter that works with you, that can help you get your tags and help you get started in that relationship you're comfortable with.
Okay, thank you so much. So kind of moving into the actual auditing process. So RaeMarie, can you talk a little bit about what is involved with the audit process, and how do ranchers streamline getting ready for an audit?
Yeah, absolutely. So every auditing company is maybe going to have a little bit of a different structure, but kind of the same. We're all going to, wind up at the same endpoint. But on our end, it's very, very simple. We start with a conversation. We want to know about the ranch. We want to know, we like to be able to work with you on what programs are really going to work well for you, what you have some premium earning potential in. We're not going to go out and just put you in every single program that, we can get $1 in. We're very, very cognizant of, putting you in programs that are going to work well for you, and being very honest in that conversation. We send a cost analysis if they want it. Here's what your cost, here's what you're going to be out. We try to be very transparent and answer the tough questions. I had a phone call a couple weeks ago from a gentleman down by Oklahoma that Longhorn Coriander cross steers, wanted to sell them, get them NHTC, sell them on the video. They have a video down there in Texas. And he asked me if there would be a premium for that. And in a very honest answer, again, back to our cost and return analysis sheet where we kind of have that little caveat at the bottom, it does tie to breed. It does tie to some quality, so to some freight factors. So are you going to get those NHTC buyers to bid a premium on those cattle that can't be implanted, that can't have beta agonists, and try to get them efficiently fed to a kill weight? So we had kind of that conversation, and that's part of our process. From there, it's a simple application contract, get you set up with a friendly regional auditor, and get you audited and approved and into the program if you qualify. One of the things we're really excited about is the work that we've been doing with AgriWebb in order to streamline that system, the audit process specifically even more. So when one of our auditors goes on site, they take a 1.5-inch binder with templates in it. It has their quality manual, which is it's basically their information that they can utilize at any time about all the requirements of their program. And then there's templates for feed. There's templates for antibiotics. All of that is in a kind of an antiquated paper binder. And one of the things that we're enjoying about our conversations with AgriWebb is how can we take the AgriWebb digital technology and make that a very, very simple process. You're having an audit, and Laurie, I think she's gonna be able to speak to this great. We've visited about it before, but an auditor shows up, you log into your AgriWebb account and you turn your phone around and you say, hey, here's my information. Here's my list of feeds, because I just bought mineral and I put it in here so that I could see what my costs are, and I have this entire list here for you. So being able, one of the other things that we're kind of been talking about with a couple of the different people at AgriWebb is, document storage. So as I mentioned earlier, you may have to fill out a shipping document if you're participating in these programs. A place to store that within AgriWebb, again, you don't necessarily need my binder. You turn your phone around and say, here's a copy of my shipping form. We check it off on the checklist and away we go. So again, being able to collaborate with AgriWebb is going to help streamline this process for producers that feel very confident in using digital technology. And I've sat through a bunch of demos with different kind of groups we're working with where AgriWebb kind of went through what the capabilities of their system are. And I can tell you, I've been auditing for 14 years. I've seen a lot of cattle software programs. This is by far and away my favorite. It's the best. It has so many different features beyond, PVP and your feed list. You can keep track of all of the money coming in and out, how much feed you have on hand, your inventories, your pasture conditions. It is an amazing system. And if we have people on here who haven't looked at it, I would definitely recommend that you look into it, whether you're in a PVP program or GAP or anything like that or not. It's a great program. It's an absolutely great program that we're really excited to offer to our customers.
Thank you. Moritz, so what did your preparation look like? What did the prep look like? What did the day of audit look like? Was there technology involved? Were there paper documents involved? How did your process go down?
The last big audit, last two, I had one Monday and then I had one last month, which was virtual. So it was a lot of emails. So I've had loading documents, transport records that were PDFs, copies of PDF, then handwritten on PDF, and then a trucker takes a picture of it because you have to record when you unload, when you get there, how many stops, when you took fuel. And then turns to a picture. So I had to email that stuff back. But a lot of it was go to records, click, go to records, animals in paddock. I have my corrals all named as paddocks. I printed out the CSV report, converted to an Excel document, emailed it off. Piece of cake. And the last one was in person. Fired up the computer, logged on to AgriWebb, showed him everything, showed the grazing records, paddock records. He pulled a couple random animals to see what their history was. And then we went, and something that I showed him that I thought was interesting is the master record of all the inputs. And if you go back on the backside, you can see who's doing what, who entered it, because we have several, there's a team, there's 4 of us here at the ranch. And then when you pull up that master record, it doesn't say, you know, for the last 4 days, Moritz Espy has been making all these entries. It lists all the entries as they're entered, and it's very transparent. So there's no doubt you can't tamper with it. So that's what he thought. That was pretty cool. And yeah, it's getting a lot easier. So once we get them transport records on there, my life's going to be easy. So just turn on AgriWebb.
Good luck with that. Laurie, can you speak to your whole process and what your preparation looks like, your technology versus paper, everything involved in your auditing process?
Oh, sure. So I think savory is probably the big delineation from Moritz. So the promise, but the thing that's nice about it is, I mean, it literally has, so my guys have a pasture map. It's 40, you know, we've got a ranch that's on a nature conservancy. It's 40,000 acres, half of it's wildlands and the good majority of it is volcanic rock. But what's nice is we can truly track RDMs, and we can truly track that, and we can utilize AgriWebb to do that. So that's been it's been a great plus. We went through Savory. We are their first company that they've ever provided a verification for doing it the way we did it, because it was customer asked. And so then we went through it, and it was great. So, but the thing that's nice is I came on this company, and my background's in horses and cattle and ranching, but I'm an accountant. And I came on because we were struggling a little bit with our organic, and this was several years, so 7-8 years ago. And the thing that's nice about it is we now have such a great relationship with our organic auditor, because it's kind of like what RaeMarie said. It's just providing that comfort. The paperwork's right there. You don't have to hunt for it. You don't have to go look in the office. You can stand out in the field. I think AgriWebb, Matt sucked me into doing one of those deals where it's an AgriHack, and you literally can stand out in the field, pick out an animal. I can pull up its tag, tell you where I bought it, what I paid for it, what certifications he came with, what he should weigh today, what vaccinations he's had in his past. It's so easy to use that it's really easy. We are looking at several different spots out from each other that I haven't had any problem getting any of my cowboys to actually utilize the data. I mean, it's as simple. They've got a map. I mean, doesn't necessarily, but I guess it's movement records. They can literally take animals, move them to a different ranch on a cell phone app, and I have all of that history. So just making my auditors comfortable, it's been great. I mean, I've had 8 audits within the last, because this happens to be our season, within the last 2 months, and we are 100% successful. And AgriWebb's made it. There's not a lot of preparation other than some movement reports, and I'm still trying to get my savory map loaded, or their savory grazing plan loaded into AgriWebb.
So going along with that, it seems like it really does make it quite easy. So whenever you're getting ready to actually sell cattle, how does this work? Whenever you have your programs, and where are you looking to sell your cattle when you have these?
So what do we do? Like for us, we will. So for instance, we sold 4 loads of natural, non-GMO GAP for cattle this week. So for us, they'll run through, and I think we've got a video on that as well. but my guys will run them through a chute, and you can Bluetooth directly to AgriWebb the weights. So the weight indicator will go directly to an app for AgriWebb, and so will you WAN the EID, and then it automatically uploads that weight, which for us is great because I can pull the average daily gain. I can then look at suppliers and different things like that. So, but anyway, so they'll run across, and if they hit the weight that we want, it'll be marked, you've got choices, it'll be marked ready to harvest. So it'll be put on the load that'll be going that week. So they'll just mark on it. So we run the amount that we need based on the weight. And those tags then are selected. And so then that will marry along with the data that I need to provide to go on with its certifications to the plant.
Interesting. It seems so efficient.
It's so automated. It's unbelievable. And don't get me wrong, we've got another place where the cell service isn't that great, but you can still take the CSV file, upload it into AgriWebb. It automatically marries itself to the data of the animals. You mark them to harvest and go through the data, and then I can produce it for the plant. And I shipped 10 loads yesterday. And it automatically marries up. It's pretty awesome.
That's incredible. So Moritz, how is it different in the bison world? So whenever you're getting ready to sell bison, where do you go with your certifications?
So we have a strategic partner through the Honest Bison that sells our meat, and sells our own labeled meat. And then I just lost my train of thought. Where do we go? That's where we go. And then so most of the sales go through there, but the certifications transfer through. And like she was saying, it is so easy. And we work offline, because it's the cell service is bad, so you don't need it. So we work offline, scan them in. The load goes, scan the load, load the truck, fill out your paper, for the auditor that hasn't been developed yet. I think it will be developed if they're listening to this. And then they're on the truck, and our processor that we use in Colorado scans the EID again, and then that EID number is with the carcass, and then I get that back, and that's just one more layer. And I take that Excel sheet, convert that over, upload it in, and that gives me all the carcasses for that semi load in about, I take it from an email, go on to my desktop, convert it, upload it, about that less time than I've been talking now, and I'm done. My carcass weights are loaded.
That's amazing. So thank you for that. RaeMarie, when other producers are looking at marketing their cattle, what are some of the do's and don'ts when working with process verified cattle or bison?
So that also is a good question. And one of the things, when I kind of told you we like to try to talk to the ranch in the beginning, what are your marketing options? Actually, it's one of the questions on our application, specifically because we want to know kind of what they're thinking. Again, the gentleman that just brought him out of the hills to his local sale barn, not necessarily a great way to market PVP program cattle. Now, I will say, as a caveat to that, we have added in the U.S. coast to coast a lot, actually, of sale barns that are PVP approved locations that you can actually take your cattle on site to a sale barn, run them through, and then they have buyers there to buy them. The one thing you have to be very cautionary about when it comes to the PVP programs and several of the other programs specifically is you can't pay your $1,590 to get in the Legacy Natural program and then take them over to Ashley Hughes and let them run on her grass for a month and then bring them back home, unless Ashley Hughes is a approved location. So what we would do is we would go to Ashley Hughes and say, okay, Ashley, you're going to be a backgrounder, and here are the things you have to do. It has to do with maintaining source and verifying IDs when they come in. So there's an entire process to that, once Ashley Hughes has been approved, I can take my cattle, run them on her grass, bring them back to my place, and then send them to an approved feed yard. So really, really important based on what your operation style is. You don't want to jump the gun and send them somewhere that is not a part of the program that you're participating in. It does very quickly get them kicked out of the program. So again, something we try to work with them on. We did have an incident with a rancher that luckily that came up in the conversation during the audit. I was doing the audit and he had not indicated that he was going to send him to a backgrounding facility for a while and retain ownership. And we were able to kind of catch that, get that backgrounder approved and keep everything in the system. So that is just one thing. The other thing when you're really thinking about marketing, and one of the things we tell people is these national video sales are an excellent opportunity to sell these cattle. And there's a primary reason. The buyers that need the cattle are all in one room at one time. So you have buyers for feed yards that supply to Tyson that want the natural, that want the NHTC. You have buyers for 44 farms that are trying to fill, last count was 11 feed yards that are feeding the NHTC, the non-hormone treated beef for Walmart. So you get all of these people in one room and you get them bidding against each other. And that's how you get the $6 and the $16 per hundredweight premiums. And the one thing to note that we do get a lot of feedback on is if we have a ranch that goes through the PVP program, they put them on one of the video sales, and then they call me up and they're ticked off because, well, I participated in your Legacy Natural program, I got a great premium, but they don't want any of my paperwork. So was this program really worth it? And yes, absolutely, because that commercial guy, that guy who's feeding conventional cattle had to outbid the guys buying for the natural feed yards and the NHTC feed yards. I mean, he had to come in. It does bring them to the table. They have to outbid him if they want the calves that bad. So he still got the premium and then didn't have to do the follow-up paperwork. But yes, stay in the program because it does show that you still had value. You just didn't have to send, the paperwork after the fact. So.
Thank you. So we've got about 7 minutes. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm going to pass it back to our panelists. If you have anything else that you'd like to add to this before we get to questions, Laurie, if you wouldn't mind going first, I'd appreciate it.
To add, that's a tough one. I do. I think that the way world's working and the way people want to see things, I think adding verification of what you're doing is just going to put you ahead. So, no, and I think our company's grown exponentially for exactly that reason. So, and we are one of those people that pay premiums for certifications and are going to continue. And gosh dang, when I started, I think we harvested 3 loads a week. We're at between 10 and 12 loads a week. So I think we're just one in many of where the industry is going.
And definitely continuing to grow. So Moritz, any last thoughts for everybody who attended the webinar today?
Well, I know a lot of the focus has been on calves, on the video sale, but we're a little bit different because our calves, we retain our calves, run them as yearlings, run them to full grown 2-year-olds, and then slaughter them as grass-fed 2-year-olds, males and females. But where we saw the biggest difference is the cull cows. You guys, every producer has cull cows to take care of. And so you've got a whole bunch of trim sitting there, and just get creative, or somebody might be looking for you, or if you go out there and look for that, because that's where your greatest premium is. The product's undervalued anyways, and your timing is off all the time. And that's where you're going to capture your greatest increase is on those off cycle animals or, cause it's not the calves. So if you can capture $16 from your calves, and then you can capture quite a few more from your cull cows.
That's great advice. RaeMarie, any final thoughts?
Really just, if you've been on the fence, if you've been thinking about participating in verification programs, honestly, I've been doing it for 14 years and there's ups and downs, but this is an excellent time. We see an industry that's very focused, very much moving toward verification programs, and a lot of like what Laurie said. We have consumers that are demanding it, and it's an opportunity for producers to step forward into a more progressive arena and get a little bit more for their calves. And I think, Ashley, there was a question on here specifically from a gentleman who wanted to know about creating a carbon neutral program, and he and I can connect later. I've talked to several different kinds of groups that are doing a lot in the way of carbon neutral beef. That is something, there's actually quite a big movement across the United States to bring that to consumers. So if he and I could have an interesting conversation. Again, like I said, the sky's the limit really when it comes to these verification programs. If we have, consumers that are interested in it, consumers that are willing to pay for it, yeah, absolutely. We want to bring the programs to those consumers and at the same time try to help those ranchers, those feed yards that want to participate get just a little bit more value for bringing the consumers what they're demanding.
Okay, thank you. So we've had a few questions come in, and you mentioned one about the carbon neutral. A couple of the questions we're talking about, how do you create a custom program? And I really think that is going to be a big thing for what people are interested if they need to create a custom program. We have another question about how small backgrounding operations get involved, and maybe that's involved with a custom program. So could you speak to those two things?
Yeah, so first question on custom programs. So basically, again, we start with a conversation with the consumer, or excuse me, the producer. What do you want? What do you want to put in your farmer's market? You're supplying to a restaurant. There's a barbecue beef group around Kansas City that we've kind of been in and out of conversations with about putting some kinds of claims to that. Local traceability is a big thing, local beef, antibiotic, hormone-free. And essentially what we do is we talk to them, we figure out what those standards are. And the one thing I will say is that Legacy Verified is not going to shirk their responsibility to make a program easier. So if you want to have antibiotic free, it will be antibiotic free, it will be verified free because we're putting our name on it. We're standing behind you 100%. So we will actually come to the table with you. And there's a couple different ways. We're doing several programs across the U.S. that are what I would call custom programs. One of them wrote their own standards, and then they started their own, how they want us to audit against those standards. We got into the conversation and kind of helped work out the details and kinks on that. We've had a group that says, these are what we want. We want a conservation component, and we want an animal handling component and a traceability component. Write us a program. So we have programs that we've written that we can use, and we find, especially when it comes to like conservation programs and things like that, it's very regionalized. We have to be very careful because the practices in, say, Florida are going to be very, very different than they are in Nevada, and they're both okay. They're just going to be very different. So we work specifically with the group to put together, build the standards for them, build the auditing process. So there's a lot of variations in how we can do that. We utilize extension services or universities also if we need to pull data to make that custom program make sense. So then your second question that you had asked was regarding a smaller backgrounder. Again, a backgrounder, we're starting with the conversation. Are you bringing in multiple sources? Are you feeding cattle for one guys? Are you feeding your own home raised calves? Because that's a whole different situation. We can set you up basically as a ranch, and if you're not bringing any other sources, there's a lot of different ways, cost-effective ways that we can do that even for the smaller backgrounder. So again, it just starts with a discussion, what you want to participate in, how we can help you do that, and then together we kind of come up with the best plan of action that's the most cost-effective and efficient for you.
Thank you. So we've had another question come in. I know we're running short on time. I wanted to thank everybody for coming tonight, panelists for having such incredible answers and providing all of your experience and expertise in everything. Unless they shut me down, we're going to answer one more question. And the final question that came in was, so where's a good place to start learning about all of this? GAP certification, certified humane, is it the Google machine, or do they connect with a person? How do people start finding out? And we've gotten the okay from AgriWebb to keep going. So thank you. In case anybody needs to step off, thank you so much for joining us tonight, but we are going to keep asking questions or answering questions as you ask them. So I guess I will probably pass this to RaeMarie. If you could help with where's the place to really start looking of how to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as far as Legacy Verified, I know that the follow-up email is going to include some of my personal contact information as well as a link to our website with a little bit more information about program requirements. You can always contact me and we can talk about, I'm familiar with pretty much all these verification programs can help you get in touch with earth claims to do your gap audit or get you in touch with Savory. So you can utilize me and Legacy Verified as a resource for that. If you're kind of out looking for yourself, hearing about these programs, I'd be very interested in hearing again how Laurie and Moritz found, how Laurie found Savory and how, they have used different kinds of tools to find that. I mean, for me, it's very easy because I know that they exist. So very interested in when it comes aside from process verified programs, where producers can actually find that information.
So Laurie, let me pass it to you. So and we spoke about this briefly, but how really, whenever you found something, how did you find the actual people to connect with? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Just warn me.
There we go.
Okay. So for us, like I said, we provide 20% of what we utilize. So for us, I guess we're the outlet. And the certifications we're looking for are ideally non-GMO and an animal welfare and a traceability component. So that's where RaeMarie can do that custom setup and guide you with who to meet, or we could work through RaeMarie and guide you, because I also have the same relationships with non-GMO and the earth claim situation, so that we can grow our supplier list to provide, what we're looking for. So, but for us, it's non-GMO, the traceability component, and an animal welfare, at least today.
So a lot of networking opportunities, it sounds like. People
For
talking
sure.
to people.
For sure.
So Morris, in the bison world, how does that work for you?
Bison's hard because there's not a lot of standards for bison. There's everything for beef, but not everybody does bison. But Google it, talk to your friends and neighbors who are doing progressive things. Like I remember there was one that I looked into that I heard about at a conference. I think it was Grass-Fed Exchange several years ago. But they didn't have bison, so we can't get in it. But like I think she said, how do we get into GAP? GAP is very, very user friendly. Like it is a template. They've got the template. You just fill it in, you submit it, and you got to remember that they want you, because they're touting that they have 100 producers or 100 or 1,000 producers or however many thousand producers. So they want you, and that boosts their numbers and it makes you better and makes them better. So just Google it, talk to friends and neighbors. If you know somebody who's making too much money in the cattle industry, maybe talk to him. So, or her.
There's so many of those.
Right. So.
And you guys can add into this. I know from my experience, I worked for a feedlot and we went through the GAP 4 certification, and it was infinitely easier than I expected. I expected it to take me months and to be the worst thing I had ever gone through. And the process, they made it easy for me. And this was pre-AgriWebb. They made the process easy for me. I was shocked, and having worked with different groups for different producer programs, I was floored at how easy they could be. If you're organized and you have your records pretty much together, it really was shocking. And we saw the profitable value as well. So, personally, me passing that along, I was surprised at how great it was. But we are well over our time. So thank you, everybody who has stuck around. Thank you again to the panelists. Thank you to everybody who attended the webinar. There will be a follow-up email from AgriWebb connecting everybody, because as we've learned, networking is the thing to do here. But thank you again for everybody who came tonight. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Ashley.